What separates the best companies in the world from those who are struggling to keep up with the competition? In a word, marketing. Look at Apple, look at Samsung, look at Nike, look at Reebok. Are they better at making products, shoes, phones? No. It's that they have better marketing and they drive more demand from their consumers. I'm Jesse Hops, the founder and CEO of Demand-Metric, and this is my masterclass on modern marketing. Over the past 15 years, I've run an organization that's focused on researching best practices for marketing. We've done over 100 different studies to learn from the best-in-class companies. In addition to these research studies, we've been doing work around building tools and templates and training courses and consulting with companies to ultimately help them improve their revenue growth and earnings. I know this is important because the best consulting firm in the world, McKinsey & Company, they recently defined commercial excellence, or what I call sort of modern marketing with some jargon on it, the design and delivery of commercial best practices that maximize profitable revenue. They analyzed over 200 of their clients across 200 commercial capabilities, right? Product management, marketing, sales enablement, all these things that kind of make up ultimately the marketing of the organization. And what they found was that the best-in-class companies that had the best commercial capabilities were outperforming on average all of their competitors by 1.9 percentage points on revenue growth and 4.7 percentage points on earnings. This is incredible. This is the difference between millions and millions of dollars for many organizations. Today I'm going to share with you my feelings around commercial excellence, what I've learned working with some of the world's best companies, and help you adopt a commercial excellence program. You're going to have better marketing, you're going to have better strategy, and you're going to grow revenue. There's a lot of problems that are holding companies back from achieving their full potential, right? I'm going to list off 10 of them here for you. The first one, they're not hitting their sales targets when they develop new products, right? I'm sure every organization you've worked in has launched a new product, they got it into market, and it just didn't deliver on the expectations for sales, okay? Number two, nearly all organizations I work with are slow and chronically delayed on product launches. This is avoidable. Number three, many organizations are simply not acquiring enough new customers at the target accounts they want to be working with. If you want to grow, it's essential that you figure out this problem. Number four, the day-to-day activities of the staff when they come into the office or they're working from home are not tightly aligned with objectives from their strategic plan. Obviously, not being aligned to your strategic plan certainly isn't helping you to achieve it, okay? Number five, if you don't have the ability to measure the productivity and the capacity of individuals and teams, the most likely scenario is that you're going to be overloading them with work, you're not going to be able to justify new hires, and you're going to have a very, very difficult time really just knowing how productive the organization is. Number six, most organizations just simply cannot demonstrate the value that their marketing department delivers to the company. It's not about just campaign ROI. There's a lot of work marketers do that has nothing to do with revenue generating campaigns. You need to find a way to capture the value of that work that's being done so you can continually show your CEO why you need to invest more into marketing to drive the growth engine. Number seven, if you've ever had any difficulty asking your boss for an additional person that you could hire because you're just literally underwater with too much work to do, you're not able to hit your deadlines, but you simply can't build the business case to hire a new person, you'll want to watch the rest of this masterclass. Number eight, do you feel like your staff are potentially a little bit overwhelmed with the work that they have on their plate? Are they burning out? Is the quality of their work inconsistent because they're rushing through things? That's a critical problem that you need to solve if you want to have the most effective commercial organization, and we're going to show you how to do that. Number nine, this is probably the number one problem holding companies back. It's the lack of transparency across different functional areas of the company, okay? If you don't have the visibility you need to know what's going on from a product strategy, product development, product marketing, sales enablement perspective, you're sort of scrambling to find out what's going on, you're going to be stuck in tons of meetings. It's going to take the wind out of your sales, your staff are going to be bored, and you're just not going to get to market fast enough. So ultimately, you need more visibility, okay? And the last piece, and this is related to the visibility part, is most companies just have way too many meetings. So many meetings going on, prep time for meetings, they don't have any time to get any work done. If you can't, communicate at the speed of light, which is possible in this day and age, can't move your communications online, you're going to be stuck doing it the old way, inefficiently, ineffectively. Okay, so if these 10 problems are problems that are plaguing your organization, watch the rest of my class and I'll show you some simple methods to solve it. What is the situation we walk into nearly any time we work with an organization? I'm sure looking at this slide, none of these would apply to you, right? Now, in all seriousness, in doing literally 10,000 phone calls with marketing directors, VPs, CEOs, heads of sales, I've heard these symptoms, these words come up over and over and over again. Number one, we just don't have enough resources, right? We don't have enough hours in the day, enough people on the team, enough budget, something to do with not enough resources. The second big one is just lack of structure, right? And structure is this kind of nebulous term, but it's not having a plan, not having processes, not having clear responsibilities, being really perceived as a cost center, in your organization, not a revenue driver, and not really having a lot of tools and templates in place to speed up your team's work. And the third major bucket or challenge or situation you may find yourself in is a slightly chaotic environment. You're very reactive, right? You don't have a lot of proactive prioritization going on. Maybe your people are working on the wrong things. If you can relate to these challenges, again, I encourage you to watch the rest of this class. I'm going to show you how you can smash through these challenges, solve your problems, and ultimately improve your commercial organization. In discovering these problems and the issues and the challenges that all of our clients are facing, we really boiled it down to about 7 or 8 really key root causes. Why are organizations struggling with these problems? Well, the first thing to understand is that most of these problems, they're not a personal problem. They're not really in the jurisdiction of any one person to solve. These are enterprise issues, okay? So you have to understand, if you want to solve problems at an enterprise level, it's going to take more than one person working on the problem to solve it. This isn't easy. It's a little bit complex, but you absolutely can do it, okay? So let me share with you my insights around the root causes holding organizations back and really creating these symptoms and these problems that they're facing. Number one, culture, okay? If you've got a culture that's heavily engineering or product, or maybe you're a hospital and it's very focused on, how you do operations and your operational processes, but you don't have a culture for sales and marketing and really helping customers to achieve success, it's going to hold you back. There's absolutely no question. The best companies that we work with have all shifted their culture from being very internally product and engineering focused to being much more market and customer driven. Okay, so that's the first one, culture. The second one, processes, right? Your processes are fundamental. If you can't describe what you do in terms of a process, William Deming said, you don't know what you're doing. You have to be able to define exactly how the organization does various functions. And most organizations either don't have any processes written down, or they have processes in a certain area, but not in marketing, not in sales, not in their product management organization. Maybe they had them, but they're 10 years old. You need up-to-date, refined, and optimized processes. Okay, I know this is a kind of a consulting term, but at the end of the day, processes will set you free. Number 3, if your staff are unclear who owns which part of the process, you'll end up with redundancy. There was an IDC study recently that showed companies are being held back 20 to 30% on revenue just strictly due to inefficiencies and redundancies. If we can eliminate those redundancies, if we can find out and really map our processes out and have clearly defined roles and responsibilities, right? Job descriptions tied to processes, sounds pretty basic, common sense, but most organizations don't actually have clear roles and responsibilities. The next one, absolutely critical. If you don't have the ability to measure your productivity or your capacity, if you can't really identify how effective and efficient you are, and on a personal level, on a team level, on an organizational level, how can you possibly get better? You need to have KPIs and metrics in place that show both productivity and capacity. The next one, templates. I've been building templates for 15 years for marketers, and they're huge time savers. If you don't have templates in place, not only for simple stuff like what's our template for building a marketing plan, what's our template for doing a product launch in terms of a checklist, you will be building things from scratch all the time. So to the extent possible, you have to put templates in place, right? You know, process templates, you know, deliverable templates. You speed up your team's effectiveness by showing them what good looks like, right? Give them a good template. Multiple systems, okay? This is one that, you know, I didn't really, you know, grasp until I got really deep into building my own software. And what I learned was that in almost all organizations, the systems that are used to manage work, right? Your project management tool, your spreadsheet, whatever, they're all different in different departments. And even in some departments, they have 3 or 4 different systems. You know, one marketing group's using Asana, another marketing group's using Basecamp. The engineering team's using Jira and Confluence. You know, the product managers aren't using anything. And the project managers, they're trying to make sense of what's going on in all these systems, and they're building spreadsheets, right? They're stuck in spreadsheet mode. So if you have lots of spreadsheets and you have multiple different systems that you're trying to use to coordinate work, to develop products, to design them, to market them, to sell them, you're going to have a lot of inefficiency. And so my thesis here is that you at least need one place, one area. It could be a spreadsheet, but it needs to be simple and easy to update to show everyone cross-functionally what's going on with major strategic initiatives. Approvals, okay? Everyone's waited on approvals before. If you have bottlenecks in your approval process, it's likely due to the fact that you just don't know who you're waiting on for what, or they're you know, looking in their email to be chased down to get an approval. If you don't have a clear process, you don't bring that online, you don't document your approvals, you're gonna get stuck with a whole bunch of stuff waiting for review and not actually completed. You know, next point. I don't think organizations that have really stuck to their guns with a completely waterfall approach to managing projects would tell you that it's working for them. We did a study on the state of project management last year, and we found that the most effective marketing organizations, the ones that get their work done, you know, on time, ahead of schedule, you know, knocking out high quality work, all of them had moved to a more agile operating model. A lot of people talk a lot about agile, but to be honest with you, most people don't actually understand what it means. And when they think they're doing agile, they're really not. So I'm going to share with you how you can put more agile principles into place and move away from your old traditional waterfall methods. And the last piece, and I think this one's absolutely fundamental, if you don't have a clear and formal prioritization process on personal levels, on team levels, on department levels, on business unit levels, you will be working on the wrong things. It's absolutely fundamental that you prioritize effectively, but if you don't have a good process in place for that, how do you know your people are working on the right stuff? Okay, so these are the key root causes of all of these problems. Through my masterclass today, I'm going to share with you how you can break through, you can solve for these issues, and ultimately improve your marketing, your product management, and your sales. What I call modern marketing. I think that marketing really owns all of those functions. It's the strategic lifeblood of the company. It lets you know what to sell, to who, how to service them, how to make them happy, what products to build. You know, to me, marketing isn't a department. Marketing is the fundamental function of a business overall. Who is this presentation or this masterclass designed for? You know, when I was thinking about building this class, I thought, you know, is this for a CEO? Is it for a head of marketing? Is it for a head of sales? And really, if your organization is trying to grow revenue and you need to do it in a profitable way, this is for you. You could be a product manager. You could be a marketing coordinator. If you're passionate about helping your company to grow, and you know, if you've got the authority, if you've been put into a position, maybe you're an executive that's been recently hired and you've come from a larger organization. We hear this every single day. You know, maybe the person was a VP of marketing at Siemens, right? A really large multi-billion-dollar company. They get hired into a mid-sized company that's maybe 500 million in sales with the intention that they're going to bring the best practices, they're going to bring the structure, what's needed to help take a mid-sized company up to an enterprise level. So if you've recently been hired from a larger company and your mandate, your job is to help the company protect its position in the market, grow revenue, and do it in a profitable way, this is for you. It's for people that have tried everything else, okay? You've tried hiring consultants, you've tried sending staff off to training, you've tried buying various software platforms, you've got an analyst firm subscription, you talk to Gartner, you talk to Forrester, you've put steering committees together, you've hired new executives, you've put new staff in place, you've restructured the organization several times, but you still haven't solved these problems. This is who this is for. Who is it not for? You know, I think that people that want change, they need to be ready for change, okay? If you're not convinced that your culture may be holding you back, this probably isn't for you. If you're not willing to change any of your current beliefs, if you don't think that anything that you believe may not be entirely true and serving you the best, this isn't for you. If you're not open and ready to work with a coach or someone who's experienced, who's done this before, you always want to do things on your own, this probably isn't for you. If you're not ready to take immediate action, if you're not willing to change any of your processes or your systems, this is not for you. If you're not ready to invest in solving your problems and view, commercial excellence and better marketing as fundamentally critical to the future sustainability of your company, this is not for you. But for those who do feel that they're ready to change their attitude, they do want to change their culture, they want to change their belief systems, they want to update their systems and processes, they're ready to take action, they want to invest in this, the rest of the company is talking about these problems all the time, this is who this was designed for. My goal today is to convince you that better execution in your commercial organization, right? Marketing, product management, sales, what I call sort of the modern marketing organization, is critical for the growth of your organization. You have to improve. You have to be just as good in marketing as you are in engineering. Being great in engineering in the past, it was great. You had cost leadership strategies, you had product innovation and quality strategies. Everyone else is caught up now. If you're an industry leader, you probably have one or two competitors that are nipping at your heels in various categories. The company with the better commercial execution, better marketing strategy is going to win in the future. It has nothing to do with producing a better quality product. Samsung's phones are just as good as Apple's, but Apple wins all the time because of their marketing. Concept, right? We have done an immense amount of research, right? What is the big idea here? What do I need you to kind of understand in order to make some of these changes happen, to solve these problems? The main idea here is that the best returns, right? Companies that are making money for their shareholders and for their investors come as a result of superior commercial execution with the smart application of digital technology. This isn't my quote. I actually found this in a report that I read from Deloitte. Deloitte's a great consulting firm. I'm sure you're familiar with them. They've got a good report. I'll put a link into this class so you can get it. But ultimately, companies must invest in their commercial capabilities to stay competitive. But leaders out there, they're just overwhelmed with all the options, right? Do I buy software? Do I hire consultants? Do I do training? Like, what do I do to solve this problem? And honestly, you've got to start making very, very strategic choices to serve your customers better. And to me, marketing, the whole function, the whole idea of marketing is to create a customer, right? You need to understand people better than they understand themselves sometimes to be able to serve them. If your mandate, if your DNA of your company is not about your customer, who they are, what they need, and you're trying to solve problems for them, you're going to be just like any other commoditized product out there. We're the only company in the world dedicated to helping mid-sized manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, B2B companies to solve these types of problems. And so I'm going to teach you in this masterclass ways that you can solve these problems on your own. I'm going to give you all the strategies you need, but also let you know that if you need some help, if you need a coach, someone to work with to help you through this, we're here. This is what Demand Metric does all day, every day. We do it through a unique combination of tools, templates, research, software, training, and coaching. But you can take all the things we've built over the past 15 years and apply them on your own. Take the principles from this masterclass and just get started, okay? We've built the most comprehensive library of tools and resources for marketing, sales, and product management, and we've actually licensed them to the American Marketing Association, the Association of National Advertisers, who distributes them to all of the world's top companies, right? A&A has members like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Pfizer, right? All of these companies have been downloading our resources, right? Our tools and templates for the past 10 years. Millions and millions of documents downloaded. So when I tell you that best practices, tools and templates will save you, I know from experience. I've asked the A&A, on your website, of all the thousands of resources you offer to your members, what are the highest performing? And year over year, tools and templates have been number 1 or number 2. So this is very important that you take a templated approach to optimizing your marketing function. In the end, you're going to want to look for quick wins, right? You can't boil the ocean, right? When you talk commercial excellence, we're talking product management, sales, marketing, product development. These are 4 major areas of the company. You can't solve them all at once. You want to find quick wins and focus on building long-term, sustainable, in-house capabilities so that you're not reliant on training companies. You're not reliant on consultants. You can do this yourself. Again, what do the best-in-class do differently? They focus on commercial excellence, better marketing, rather than just being cheaper or having a slightly higher quality product. They understand that, really achieving commercial excellence, achieving modern marketing is about committing to a journey. It's not a destination you arrive at. You always need to be getting better. Your competition is constantly looking for new and better ways of serving their customers. If you're not the best at identifying customer needs and exploiting those opportunities in the market, of course you're not going to win, right? So, the best in the world, they focus on achieving outcomes for their customers, not giving them products. They give them solutions. They focus on industry verticals and really what are the unique needs within those industries and offering solutions or outcomes. If you're not focused on outcomes, you're not thinking about your customers' long-term success, your customers simply won't find you anymore. A little bit more about me. So I've been in sales for close to 30 years. I started my career at about 11 years old, selling flowers door to door. It was freezing cold. I lived in Canada, so my roses would actually be frozen solid when I'd get to the door. But a lot of people out there, I think they felt bad for me. I was a kid trying to make a buck and get through school, and they would support me. So I got my start in door-to-door sales. Later on, I went to university at the University of Western Ontario. I studied philosophy, and it took me 5 years to get through a 3-year program because I was working full-time. I had to work full-time all year round and take about 3 classes at a time. And the company that I found to work at was a great organization. It's called the Infotech Research Group. And Infotech was led by kids that had graduated from the top business school in Canada. This was my life dream. My goal was to get into the Ivy School of Business at Western. It's Canada's #1 business school. And unfortunately, I didn't get in. I didn't get pre-accepted. I went to my 2 years of my undergrad and tried to get in there after that. And although I had Toastmasters, Dale Carnegie training, I had run my own businesses, I had a sales background, I was working actively in consulting with CIOs and IT directors in some of the world's best companies, for some reason the business school didn't think I'd be a good candidate. And my grades were pretty good, but they weren't 97% on average, so I didn't get in. And so, but I did have the opportunity to work with people who had gone through some of the best training in the world for running businesses. So when I was working at Infotech, they had really designed an amazing culture. They had great processes, great systems. It was just an unbelievable experience. And when I finally finished school and I graduated, I was one of the top sales reps at Infotech, selling, disaster recovery consulting and all the stuff that was really popular back then. But I thought, I really wanted to start my own company. What can I do? I know about this whole idea of doing research and building tools, and talking to my clients, the #1 thing that they valued from Infotech was the ability to quickly take a tool or template off the shelf that looked professional, that helped them make a decision, plan something, organize their thoughts, communicate to others, wipe off their logo, put theirs on there, make a couple of tweaks and edits to it, and go into a meeting and really impress their peers and their boss. That was the real value. And so I thought, maybe we could take the same business model and apply it to marketing, right? Marketing at that point in time, this is, around 2005, was just starting to, evolve. It was, before it was much more about branding and advertising and, creating pretty pictures and brochures. Around 2005, there was a big shift, and that was no longer good enough for a marketer. You couldn't just build nice stuff. To succeed in marketing, the theory was that you needed to become more metrics driven, you needed to drive opportunities into the pipeline and help sales and the product management team hit the revenue goals. Marketing for the first time was being connected with revenue. So we saw a huge opportunity, a lot of disruption just in the marketing function in the B2B world. So I asked my old boss, the CEO of Infotech, what do you think about applying the model to marketing? And he said, go ahead, kid. I know you're going to do well, and I'll buy your company in 15 years when it's really successful, but be careful because I'm going after marketing soon myself. So I was, really motivated. I wanted to get this company off the ground. I moved out to Vancouver, BC, and I actually had a good friend of mine come and join me to help get the business off the ground. And we smiled and dialed. We made 200 phone calls a day. We got a hold of 5 or 10 people, and we just asked them what they were working on. And they, some people would say, well, I'm working on a product launch, or I'm working on my content strategy or whatever. And we didn't have a product back then. We had maybe 5 or 6 templates on a website. And what we would do is we would talk to VPs of marketing and we'd ask them, just what is the number one issue on their plate? And at nighttime, I would do research. I would read as much as I could possibly find on the subject to not write them a summary or a report or some information that they might be able to use. My skill really became, how can I make it a tool? How can I take what I've learned from the research, the best practices, and turn it into something practical that my client could apply at work on Monday morning? And I repeated that process 500 times. Hey sir, what are you working on? What can I help you with? Oh, I need to prioritize my projects. Okay. Let me call you back next week. I'll do some research, I'll build a tool, and I would present it. And 9 out of 10 times, if I gave them a solution to their problem, they would buy a subscription. And back then, we were selling subscriptions, I think, for about $500 a year. So that was how we got started. It was very much customer-driven, solving problems, building really practical tools and resources for our customers. And about, 3 or 4 years into just repeating the process, right? Dialing and building stuff, the American Marketing Association found our content. And they said, this is fantastic. These tools are amazing. We want to give them to our members, drive value into our members. How do we work together? And I was just stunned. I couldn't believe it that this hard work we've been doing finally got noticed. So we entered into a licensing partnership with the AMA, and we started providing some of our content to their members. That got us a lot of visibility, really kind of put us on the map as being the marketing tools guys. And so that led to a lot of other opportunities. Another major association, the Association of National Advertisers, they're composed of about 500 companies that are spending the most money on advertising in the US. They found what AMA was doing. They called me up and said, hey, we like what you're doing over here, but we want everything. We want all of your content. Let us put it on the website. We'll distribute it out to our Fortune 500 companies, and you will be literally on the map in terms of being experts in marketing tools and resources. So, we thought maybe this will cannibalize our business. Is this a good idea? But they were willing to pay us a lot of money. So I said, sure, let's give it a try. So we co-branded all the resources, and we put them on the ANA website. And that really, I think, was a turning point for us. Once, Coca-Cola, Pfizer, Pepsi, all of these great companies started finding these really practical tools through the ANA, they started calling us. They would call us and they didn't want to work with us directly. We started doing more coaching and consulting and training. I remember one day Microsoft called, and I was shocked. I remember when I was a child, my grandfather told me, write Bill Gates a letter and tell him you're a young, smart kid, you're hardworking, and you really want to learn computers so you can build a business. And we had no money at the time. My family didn't come from a really rich background. So I was considering writing Bill Gates a letter to ask him for a computer. Unfortunately, it didn't come to that. My grandfather bought me a laptop, but about 7 years into building Demand-Metric, unfortunately, he died of a heart attack. And so about a year after that happened, I went to Thailand and went to his funeral and all of that. And that was when Microsoft called. And it was just unfortunate that he didn't get to see that, that we actually got to do some business with them. So when Microsoft called, what they were looking for was actually pretty simple. It was a head of channel sales, and his job was to drive more sales through the ecosystem of partners that they had. There was about 2,000 partners that they were giving a lot of marketing dollars to, but they felt that they were just kind of wasting those dollars on kind of old school tactics, right? Going to trade shows and not really doing anything digital or online. So although they had a partner marketing group who was responsible for enabling the marketers in the channel, this channel sales VP didn't feel that what they were doing was going to get the job done, and he wasn't going to hit his sales target. That was his problem. The program had 3 parts. The first was we assessed all of their partner organizations on a basic, maturity assessment for marketing capabilities and reported that back. The second piece was they needed training on digital marketing, but they needed it in 10 languages. We didn't have our product in 10 different languages, so we actually, they spent several $100,000 on this program. We invested it all into the product. We built the courses, we got them subtitled, and we built out this great training program. And in the end, there was training and certification. And the third piece was we did a little audit, a little mini audit of their website to see if they had things like analytics code and so on inside their site. So suffice to say, I was extremely proud that I had done business with Microsoft. We had learned a lot. We had some resources to really invest back into our product. And that program's actually now been repeated several times over. We're doing that with Esri, who's a global company in the geographic information systems space, and Autodesk, the people that make AutoCAD. They're doing this as well. So that's been fantastic, these channel enablement programs. And then about 3 years ago, we had this huge problem in our business. We were a really fast growing company, hiring people, putting people in place, and as CEO, I just didn't have visibility into what was going on. I remember I actually had a kind of a breakdown one day. I asked my partner, John, I said, John, it was Monday morning, what do we got on our plate this week? What is the most high priority items we need to focus on? And John at the time, I think, was using Basecamp to manage his work. And he said, give me a couple hours to look at all the 55 projects we have in Basecamp, and I'll try to find the most important piece we need to do, and then let's have a meeting after this afternoon to talk about it. And I just thought, this is absolute craziness. We don't have 2 hours to go look in systems to find out what we should be working on. We need visibility. What are the key priority items across all of our projects, across all of our people? And I need that in real time. And so we looked around. We're like, is this a problem everybody else is facing too? I read 5,000 reviews on G2 Crowd looking at what do people love about Trello? What do they hate about Trello? What do they like about Asana? What do they like about Workfront and Rike and all these systems that were coming out to help enable marketing organizations? And there was basically 3 conclusions. The first thing was people really wanted something simple, right? But most technologies and systems are just too hard to learn, and that really hurts with getting people to adopt and use the system. And the second thing they needed, and they all complained about, was the same problem I had. It was cross-functional or cross-project visibility. They wanted something that rolled up on a manager level. Most of these platforms were designed from the inside out with one project in mind and one person. They weren't designed for a person like me that had 15 people and 55 projects and needed to know what is the critical path we need to be on right now. So we decided to take it upon ourselves and build a solution. Initially, it was just meant to be a really basic project management system, but it's really now evolved into what I would call a growth operating system. We'll show you more about that later, and how you can use a system that gives you full visibility to really reduce your meetings and get to market sooner. Last piece is, since we've had software and training, we've been invited to do a lot of consulting and training work, but we found that traditional consulting is both very expensive and there's not necessarily the best outcomes from it. Instead of just going in and doing the work for someone, we found that it's much more effective if you can coach and train the people in the organization or the teams to perform at a higher level. You don't just get this temporary bump and then everything goes back to normal and when the consultant leaves. You've built sustainable long-term capability in-house. And more importantly, if you can afford to work with a coach longer term rather than an expensive consultant short term, then you can actually have someone who holds you accountable, right, to the changes that you're making. When you start drifting and going off course, your coach is there to bring you back, get you back to practicing the fundamentals, make sure that you're draining your free throws, okay? So that's a little bit about me. I've got a young family. This is my inspiration. This is why I get out of bed early every morning and work my butt off. It's my wife, Lisette, and my 2 daughters, Alicia and Elena. Some clients we've worked with. So taking a quick look at this slide, you'll notice companies across all industries, but where we're really focused right now is manufacturing, right? Healthcare and financial services. Traditionally, those organizations have been very, very strong in their operations from a clinical perspective or from a manufacturing perspective, but they haven't put the same level of rigor and discipline and really thinking into how do we optimize marketing? How can we drive growth through better marketing? And so I would say if we were to be experts in one particular area, it would be mid-sized B2B companies. A lot of these companies are gigantic. We haven't done deep consulting with all of them, certainly, but I show these because these are the type of companies that are coming to our website, downloading our tools and resources, all of the things I'm going to be sharing in the rest of this class with you. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation. I'm going to share with you 5 unique insights that I've discovered working with some of the world's best companies over the past few years. The first one, okay, is how to create a commercial operations framework to increase your revenue and earnings and integrate it with your product development process. To me, commercial operations, commercial excellence, it's all about marketing. It's all about having the best strategy to go to market with, okay? Without the right strategy, you'll be building the wrong things and you won't hit your sales targets when they get out there. The second thing, I'm gonna help you define and optimize all of your commercial processes, product management, marketing, sales, in weeks, not years. This doesn't have to take forever. We've spent the last 15 years doing research, building playbooks, building process templates, so our clients can implement this stuff very, very quickly. And we're also going to share a little bit about Lean Six Sigma. This is something that's been used in process optimization for engineering and manufacturing for many, many, many years with an intention to improve quality, improve the predictability of outcomes. But we're going to show you today how you can apply some principles, just some basic ideas from that into your marketing organization to drive just as much excellence into the marketing side of the house. Number 3. How do you get to market faster, right? This is the perennial question. It's in everyone's strategic plan. I've seen several strategy plans this year, and they all have a bullet point for this, right? We want to get to market sooner, get to that hockey stick of revenue ramping before our competition has a chance to catch up. And if you can't figure out a way to drive efficiency into your end-to-end, kind of strategy, development, launch, campaigns and marketing, you're leaving money on the table, right? So if we can help you to get to market 10 to 20% faster, the way to do this is using a general platform that gives everyone across the organization full visibility. We've kind of termed it a growth operating system. And you ultimately need more visibility so you can reduce time in meetings, reduce time preparing for meetings, and squeeze out more efficiency from your process, okay? The fourth thing, we're going to show you today how you can measure the productivity and capacity of your teams, of your people, without asking them to track their time, right? That the old way was write down every hour you worked. Nobody wants to do that. So we're going to show you a better way on how you can measure productivity. And the last piece, and probably the most important, how do you get your staff to buy into change? How do you get them happy about change? Not fearing it, not afraid of new outcomes, right? I'm going to show you a framework we've developed. It's very, very simple, but we've spent a lot of time researching behavior and psychology and people and how to get them on board with change, right? How to get them excited about it for new processes, new tools, new ways of thinking, because ultimately, without changing people's attitudes and beliefs, their behaviors and habits won't follow. And ultimately, I equate habits to culture, right? Your culture needs to change. When you say that, what you really mean is you need the habits, the attitudes, and the beliefs of your people to change. So that's what we're going to cover today. I'm super excited to dive in, and we'll get going right away. Okay, so let's dive in here. Insight number 1, how to create a commercial operations framework. Some people call this an end-to-end marketing framework to increase your revenue and earnings and align and integrate it with your current product development process or whatever you have there in terms of how you build your products and services, okay? I learned this breakthrough working with one of the world's top companies. They supply the pharmaceutical industry with vials and syringes, about a $2 billion company, and they've got an amazing product development process. I mean, they're selling to Pfizer, Moderna, all the companies selling the vaccines right now, and they realize that although they have great operational excellence, to grow in the future, they need to improve their commercial excellence. And so they hired a new SVP of marketing, and I'd actually worked with her at a previous company. So when she came in, they restructured their product and marketing organizations. They had about, 25 in each side, so about 50 people in total they were trying to coordinate. And her job was simple. It was restructure the organization, put commercial best practices into place, and improve the product development and launch process. Those were the major things that they asked for help on. And this company has a lot of resource, right? They can work with the big consulting firms. They've got analyst firm subscriptions to Gartner and Forrester and all these guys. But what they didn't have, what they were really looking for was, how do we practically operationalize these things, right? How do we redefine the framework or the structure of what we're doing from a marketing standpoint, and then equip and enable our staff to do the job day to day more effectively? And so that was really what they brought me in for. I wasn't really doing a lot of consulting at the time. I was very focused on building our software. But I said, you know what, this sounds like an interesting project. I'd love to help out. They were obviously working hard to get vaccines and all of that out the door. So I wanted to contribute the most I could. So they hired us, and ultimately What they wanted was better process, better tools, but I think what they really wanted was just as a marketing function to be more respected in the organization. They wanted to have a seat at the table and really be a driver of the business. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but before we dive into it, I want to talk a little bit about this word framework. What is a framework? In the dictionary it says it's a supporting structure around which something can be built. Okay, so I think that ties in nicely with building products. It's a system of rules, ideas, or beliefs used to plan or decide something. Okay, so a lot of frameworks have decision points built into them. You might have a stage gate process or something like that where you've got all these activities and then you have checkpoints and you make decisions to promote the new product to the next stage of development. Well, that's very much a framework, okay? So a few different frameworks out there. You might have seen Gartner's, you might have seen Serious Decisions, you might have seen Pragmatic Marketing. They all have a whole bunch of activities, right? Things you should do to understand your customer, identify the market opportunity, build a business case, and ultimately get development happening. And then once your product's built, understanding the value proposition, the content you need to build, enabling your sales organization or your channel to ultimately sell the product, right? So lots of frameworks out there, and they're all pretty similar, to be honest with you. Now, I think there's some value in frameworks, certainly. They're nice because they give you the big picture. They help you standardize a repeatable process for getting something done, like getting a new product to market. They look really pretty and professional, right? It's a nice piece of work you can show your boss, like, hey, look at this great framework I built. So it's great for communication and training. Now, there's some issues with frameworks though, right? So most frameworks you can find out there, they're sort of a one-size-fits-all approach. They assume you have all the resources, all the staff, all the budget in the world to do all these activities. And I'm friends with a few guys that used to do a lot of product management training for Pragmatic Institute, probably the leader in the world for product management training. They've trained tens of thousands of product managers. And what they told me after working there for so long was that this framework that they built, this best practice model, it was just too heavy. It was just too many things to do for a company to actually operationalize, actually do all the pieces. So they've been working on building their own frameworks to simplify things. So, I think there's a couple other issues with frameworks, especially if they're off the shelf. One, in a lot of companies, they're very proud of their processes, right? This is their secret sauce. So if it wasn't kind of made here, that can really hurt with adopting of frameworks, okay? So you often get generic sort of tools and training. Maybe they're not really perfectly aligned with your industry or your company. So, my take on frameworks that are existing out there is that they're a great starting point, but they're certainly not the end point, okay? So how do you build one, for yourself, right? How do you make your own commercial framework? And what is a commercial framework? These are the questions I'm going to answer. The frameworks that are existing today in the world are generally speaking focused around the product development and engineering or manufacturing side of commercial operations, right? They don't kind of take into account really all of the rest of it. They might have a box or two in there for, what should we sell and the business case and the requirements and then a go-to-market plan, but they're not blown out to the degree that a typical product development process would look like that has a lot of different technical things that need to happen. So a commercial framework, it's the same thing as a product development framework in that you're talking about, defining an idea and getting it into the market and selling it. The difference is the lens at which you're looking through, right? If you're looking through it from an engineer's perspective who's developing the product, you're going to think, okay, what are my inputs? Okay, what do the customers need? What are the features, the requirements? What's the business case? What's the budget? How does this fit into our overall portfolio of other products? How do we prioritize this opportunity versus others? All very good stuff and things you need to do. But then the rest of it is like, how do we technically build a prototype and get it approved and go through regulatory compliance, all these things. And at the end, there's usually a piece around go-to-market. A commercial framework would look at the same thing, but through the marketing and sales and product management organization's perspective. So, maybe there's still, 75 things that need to happen, but they're mainly sales and marketing and product management things that need to be done, with a few areas where they expect that engineering is going to have to go in and actually build the product, right? So same concept, just zooming in on the parts that are related to what we're going to sell, how we're going to message it, how we're going to get demand for it in the marketplace. So think of it like this. The product development process, 90% development, engineering, 10% marketing. A commercial framework is 90% marketing, 10% engineering, okay? It's critical that if you're going to build a commercial framework, it needs to tightly integrate and align with the existing product development process. Otherwise, there's no chance it's going to get adopted. So the goal with this is to really drive the same level of excellence that you have in engineering into your commercial organization. Okay, so how do you actually create a framework, right? You know, there's lots of frameworks out there. Do you just sort of grab bits and pieces of each one, slap them together and hope that you're done? I mean, that's one way of doing it, but it's not what I would recommend. So what I found in working with this really large manufacturing company was that we needed to analyze the activities that we thought were important. We had to really rationalize, do we need all these things? Is this feasible? How does this tie into our product development process? So we ended up building a tool to help facilitate this. You can get this for free on Demand Metrics site, and we call it a commercial operations development tool. And what you need to do is, you know, grab any framework that you think is a pretty close fit for what you need and list all the steps and activities that it recommends that you would do down the left-hand side. Then you want to look at, you know, how does this align into our current product development process? Is this in stage 1, stage 2? Do we have to create a stage 0? And we want to actually analyze the step to say, you know, what do we do today? What should we be doing, right? Kind of a gap analysis on what the function is right now. What is it depending on, right? What are the inputs we need to do this work? What is the process or the set of steps we need to do to accomplish this task? And what is the outcome? What is the deliverable that we're going to create? Is this a new document? Is this like a presentation? Is it a section that goes into another report? You know, how do these things all fit together, essentially? And then most importantly, we need to define who in the organization is responsible for each piece, right? Who do you have to consult and kind of get feedback from, but who ultimately owns getting it done, getting it executed, okay? So this tool and following this set of steps of, you know, aligning to your product development stage, assessing the current and the future state of that part of the process, looking at the inputs and outputs and ultimately the dependencies, and most importantly, defining what is the set of steps we need to do to make this happen. That's your starting point to figure out what your commercial framework looks like. You know, questions, right? I get a lot of questions about, you know, commercial frameworks every day. How long does it take to create one? I've had some companies build them in a couple days. I've had other companies take up to a month. Really just depends how complex your organization is and how many other stakeholders you need to kind of get aligned and drive consensus on it. You know, does it replace your PDP process, your product development? Absolutely not, right? This is something that's meant to be complementary and integrated with your product development process. Can you use an off-the-shelf one? Again, I don't think it's a great idea, but certainly I would research them all and learn and see what other approaches are just to get yourself more familiar with the concepts. And this is probably the toughest question. If I've got a framework and I've got, you know, 75 steps that the marketing and product management and sales organization need to do to prepare to launch a product, how do I operationalize that, right? How do I actually get people rowing in the same direction, like doing the work? And the short answer to that question is you need to very clearly define a process for each thing. You need to put it into some software so it's ingrained in people's day-to-day habits and activities and make it very, very simple for them to do each task and report on it, okay? We'll talk a bit more about that later. And ultimately, who needs to be involved in creating the framework? This is certainly not something that just a marketing manager does. You might need your CEO, your head of sales, your head of marketing, your head of product development, maybe your head of IT, depending on what you sell. The whole management team really needs to get involved because this is the lifeblood of your business, right? If you can't innovate and develop new solutions for your target customers effectively, you know, you simply won't cease to exist in 10 years. You know, this is how companies thrive. Why does Apple stay on top? Because they're always bringing out the next new best product, okay? So this is a cross-functional thing. Certainly needs to be driven from the top down. So make sure that your senior leadership team is involved, or the chances of it actually, you know, getting into place are very low. Okay, we're back. Insight number 2. How can you define and optimize your processes, right? Your marketing, sales, product management processes in a matter of weeks, not years, leveraging templates and using a proven methodology for process optimization, okay? This is something I've been working on for literally 15 years, so I'm very, very excited to share this with you. Okay, so the old way of trying to fix your processes or you know, deal with this is to simply ignore it, right? We don't need processes. We have an entrepreneurial culture. Our staff know what they need to do, okay? I hear this all the time. Well, you know, IDC did a study and they found that companies are losing 20 to 30% of revenue due to inefficiencies. How do you fix for inefficiencies? You have processes, you optimize them, right? You need to find ways to continually get better and more efficient at what you're doing. But if it's not defined, it's impossible to analyze and optimize it. So, you know, the reason why not having processes is so important is that the quality of the work that's being done is inconsistent. You have little pockets of excellence, but you're relying on heroes over your processes. It takes a long time to ramp up new staff onto how to do their job, right? They just simply don't have a list of what exactly they're supposed to do. And even worse, when people that have been at your company for a long time leave, all of that knowledge of how to do things goes out the door with them, okay? You can't measure your efficiency or effectiveness. It's hard to optimize because it's not written down, and it creates an environment of complacency to some extent where people say, I'm working hard, I'm doing the best I can. If you don't have metrics to determine their productivity and their capacity and their output, then you don't really know how hard people are working. They may say they are, but they may be working on the wrong things. They may work on things that are not aligned to your strategic objectives. And last, there's a lot of redundancies, right? If you don't have clearly defined processes, lots of people might think that a certain activity is their job, right? It's just not clearly defined. And so that creates a lot of confusion in organizations, a lot of stress and anxiety, and just not the best relations with your staff. So, what's the new way, right? How do you optimize your processes? Well, the new way is you want to proactively define and optimize them to drive efficiency and effectiveness across the entire commercial organization. This should be a proactive effort that you're constantly working on. You never quite finish, right? This will help you increase your revenue and your growth. It'll improve the consistency and quality of your work. It'll help you ramp people more quickly. It'll give you actual metrics so you can benchmark your performance and improve upon it and show that you're improving, okay? It gives you the ability to optimize everything that's going on, eliminate the redundancies, and just make your operating environment a lot more enjoyable for your staff, okay? Makes life easier for your managers, right? It'll help your CEO understand what's actually going on in the company. I call this running a tighter ship. The best decision makers that I work with, VPs of sales, VPs of marketing, CEOs, all of them have one thing in common. They understand the value of process, okay? They're always struggling to achieve it, but they understand the value of it, okay? So how do you actually get it done quickly, right? This sounds like, oh my God, I gotta write down, look at all these processes in a commercial organization. You got, strategy and market research and requirements and how to do a value proposition, build a business case, pricing, launching products, building assets, doing campaigns, doing advertising, running events, doing sales training. How do you run your sales process, right? How do you select the right accounts to sell? These are all interconnected, interdependent processes. Whether or not you look at them as a process or not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, they are sets of activities you're expecting staff to do to achieve a certain outcome or goal, right? So, underpinning all of these commercial operations is your cross-functional project and program management. Program management being how several projects are being coordinated together to achieve a large outcome, like a product launch. And then you've generally got some other supporting functions like IT, HR, administration that are there to help you get the right people in place, put the right technology in place, and ultimately administer the work. So, what have I learned? Quick little story here. When I was at Infotech, the IT analyst firm, there was something that really stuck out at me, and it was this idea of modeling process maturity, right? It was kind of a nerdy subject I was geeking out on. I remember reading a report one weekend, and there was this organization, it's part of the Carnegie Mellon University, right? And they were tasked by the US government with coming up with some way to evaluate the quality of software engineering processes for government contractors. They were hiring contractors to write, code for fighter jets, right? They couldn't have bugs in the code. So they needed a way to identify the level of capability that a company could do from an engineering perspective. So they basically built this model, and I've been using this model every day since, okay? There's 5 levels to any given process. The first level is initial, right? This is where it's reactive. You don't really have clear responsibilities defined. There's no metrics, and quality and results are really unpredictable. This is kind of, really ad hoc. The second level is managed, okay? So here, maybe some processes are defined. You've got a couple metrics and roles in place, but they're not really reviewed or controlled. You don't really have dashboards. You're not reviewing the metrics. But people kind of know what they're doing. So we call this sort of like repeatable, right? Where you've got tribal knowledge. When you start getting into level 3, this is where you've got defined process, okay? So this is proactive, written down, maybe estimated. You've got the roles clearly laid out. You've got metrics to really see how well the process is performing, and things are standardized, okay? And this is really a place that most organizations are lacking. They're kind of sitting in level 1 or level 2, and they need to get to 3 and 4 very quickly. 4, this is where things start to get really interesting. Now you've got processes, they're defined, and they're being measured, okay? So you've got data coming out of your operations. You know how efficient, how effective you are. And now you can actually try some experiments to maybe to tweak and optimize and improve it. And so level 5 is when you're controlling the process, you're measuring the outcomes, you've got dashboards in place, and now you're running experiments to optimize the processes, okay? So our goal is to teach you how to go from level 1 to level 2 in most of your marketing to level 4 overnight, as quickly as possible within a few weeks, okay? What's a great way to look at processes, okay? If you're just getting started and you haven't done this before, I'll save you the 6 months of studying and becoming a Lean Six Sigma black belt. There's one framework called a Lean Six Sigma that I found to be very, very helpful. It's called D.M.A.I.C, okay? D.M.A.I.C. And that's an acronym, and what it means is define, okay? So D is for define. What is the problem and what are the objectives, right? You're looking at a process, you're thinking about like sales training. Well, the problem is maybe the guys we're hiring and that are out there selling for us aren't hitting their sales target, okay? So the problem is salespeople not hitting their sales target. The process that we want to put in place needs to solve for that outcome. It's not just we do training on Tuesdays at 4 because that's what we do. That's not a process, right? That's an activity that's happening, but we want to define the problem. What is the goal of the process, okay? The second piece, measure, M, okay? What do we need to improve, right? How can we measure this so that we know if we're being effective in improving the process, right? So what is the KPI? What is the metric we'll use to measure and control this? A, the third one, okay? So analyze. What are we doing today? What are the root causes of our issues? If we can't do an analysis to identify the problem with the current process not achieving the outcome, we don't really have any work to do because we think we're optimal. But by and large, if you run through this framework, you will always find new ideas on any single process out there to improve it, okay? So I, that's the next one, improve, right? What are we gonna do to solve the problem? How are we gonna solve the root cause issues? And C, control, this is how can we be sure that the change to the process, actually worked or that we're sticking to the process, right? We need some mechanism to control and look at the metrics, right? So it's not enough just to have data and metrics. We have to actually have processes to review that data, take a look at it, and see if we're being successful, okay? So D.M.A.I.C, it's from Lean Six Sigma, really cool stuff. So where is D.M.A.I.C usually applied, right? Lean Six Sigma is very much an engineering-focused thing, right? This came out of engineering for quality management, making sure that widgets coming off the line were perfect. They weren't, there was no defects, right? It was about minimizing defect rate. Well, there's no reason why we can't apply the same thinking, right? The same way that we make that widget the same, like the McDonald's hamburger anywhere in the world tastes exactly the same to everything we do in business, right? We can do this in marketing, we can do this in sales, we can do this in product management. It just hasn't been applied that way. So, things to remember. Our processes, we have a bunch of them, whether they're written down or not. There's different levels of process maturity and capability, and you're probably sitting at the lower end of the spectrum in some of them. And most of the best practices around improving processes have been applied by engineers to engineering, okay? What we're proposing is that you would actually optimize all of the rest of the processes, right? It's not enough to just build a great product that doesn't have defects. You have to have great processes on defining the strategy, understanding the market, launching things, doing campaigns, selling, right? All of these things need to be systematically optimized over time, including how you manage your projects and programs. Okay? So I've got a little framework for you, just something you can remember easily. I call this the Better Execution Framework, okay? So it's BETTER. B is for benchmark, right? So you assess the current state of your operations. E, you engage your staff, right? You want to audit your core processes, your organizational structure, and the staff and technology that you have in place. Tactics, right? So this is building out your framework, optimizing your processes with D.M.A.I.C, and defining your roles and responsibilities. The next T is for training, playbooks, tools, templates, adding an agile operating model into the mix. E is execute, run your processes, right? If you're running them effectively and you have metrics in place, you'll start gathering data. And with that data, you'll be able to optimize and improve them. And the last one is report, look at your dashboards, look at your KPIs, and demonstrate progress over time. Okay, Demand Metric has spent the past 15 years building out every tool, template, process, playbook that you could imagine. So instead of trying to build all this stuff from scratch, you can simply go to the website, download these templates, download these process templates, and tweak them, right? Customize them in a matter of weeks rather than years. So it's one thing to know where to find them, but the important thing is you need to make them work for you. And so this D.M.A.I.C framework for how to optimize processes is absolutely essential, and I'm super excited to share it with you. All right, so really quick look inside of Demand system. We have all these templates laid out for you. You simply, launch a project, and in this case, it's a product launch process. We have, all the steps laid out, so you're not starting from a blank slate. If you want to just use our off-the-shelf workflow templates and processes, they're all in great shape. We've done a lot of research on this and optimized them over time working with our clients. We actually provide checklists, a template that you can use to follow. So if you don't have a process for a case study on how to do that, you can just use this one right off the shelf, make a couple edits to it, get something done in a matter of seconds or minutes rather than weeks or months, okay? So that's it. A couple templates, process templates, FAQs, right? What do people ask me about when it comes to processes? Do we have to stop using, some of the existing stuff that we're doing? Do we have to change a lot? How long does it take to implement this stuff? I would say if you feel that you're having problems and that the root cause of those problems could be that people just simply don't have a clear checklist to follow in terms of how to do their job, then I think you need to do a little bit of work in the process area. And do we need to get our senior management team involved? I think absolutely, when you're defining how the business operates for something as important as what new products to build, how to launch them, how to market and sell them, these are fundamental business issues. So the more people you can get involved on helping you define your processes, the better. Okay, insight number 3, how to get to market 10 to 20% faster. I'm talking about shaving months off your product development and launch cycle by implementing a growth operating system, okay? This will help you reduce your meetings by giving you full cross-functional visibility into all the operations that are happening to develop, design, and market the product, okay? So I learned this in working with a great company. They're actually the industry leader in super high-end power tools. I can't mention their name, but working with the CEO there, with a marketing coordinator, and their goal is really to double their revenue in the next 5 years. And so they had a bullet point in their strategic plan of driving excellence into their product launch process. And product launches, we all know, are kind of where the shit hits the fan, right? That's where all the different functions of the organization are trying to coordinate. You got finance involved, you got operations and manufacturing and sales and marketing and the product team and the CEO. I mean, everybody is working together to make the company ready for this launch. And when you've got 6 to 10 of these launches happening per year, there's just a lot of complexity, right? So they were using spreadsheets to manage this. They had some actually really nice spreadsheets for all the different launches. They had all the steps they were doing, kind of a red, yellow, green system of trying to figure out the status of where things were at. But they knew they could do better, right? They knew that they could find a better way to optimize this process. So we started coaching with them, and we actually built out a methodology for how to define the launch process, and we took that and we put it into our growth operating system so they could, instead of looking at their spreadsheets to see what was going on and have meetings and try to update the spreadsheet in real time, right? They were communicating at the speed of light, because as different parts of the organization were updating what they were doing, everyone had visibility into exactly where all pieces were at, okay? So in doing this, we actually transformed how they actually do launches. Instead of just doing launches as quickly as possible when the product was built, they've kind of moved their process to be a little bit different, where they're grouping launches together and having a lot less stress about deadlines, right? The organization, they wanted to get better at launch, but what they really want to do is they don't want to have their people stressed out feeling like they're always missing their deadlines, okay? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the old way of doing it, right? So the old way of managing a product launch or any sort of cross-functional project in a business is to have each department use their own tools and technology for managing their part of the project, right? And maybe you might have a centralized project management office, if you're lucky, that is sort of doing a lot of that project management for you. In most mid-sized companies, though, they don't have a project management office. So each department has their own system, right? You got Jira in engineering, you got Asana in marketing, you got Basecamp over here in the communications team, you got Salesforce for sales. Everyone kind of logs into different systems every day. And ultimately what happens is, because everyone's managing this cross-functional project in their own way, their own system, you have to have meetings, right, with people to find out, what's going on. Did you finish your work? I'm waiting for you because your work is sort of preceding my work, and it's dependent on this. So the old way was kind of like what I call ticketing, right? Like I send a request to you, and you send a request to the other team, and then you're constantly sending these requests back and forth and trying to chase down what's going on with, this piece of the project. And then you're having all these meetings going on to say, what's the status, right? You got to prep for your meetings. The ultimate result of this is that communications are inefficient. You're not collaborating well between your teams, and this really slows down your time to market, okay? If we're gonna get to market 10, 20% faster, we have to find efficiency, right? The way to find efficiency is let the people do the work. Don't have them talking about the work so much. Don't have them project managing the work so much. Don't have them prepping for the meeting to talk about the work. Get them doing the work, but have the visibility in real time to know the status of all the work and be able to comment, approve, help remove obstacles, things that are blocked in the process. That's a more efficient use of time, okay? So in order to do that, you need to think about things a little different. Segmented, multiple system spreadsheets, that's the old way. That's what's causing this problem, okay? So you have to think about how can we do this a little bit differently. So the new way, okay, is to implement a single platform, all right, that can manage cross-functional projects like product launches and really any other major strategic initiative, like say a website redesign. That's a huge project that touches many teams and departments. Perfect opportunity for something like this, okay? Gives you real-time visibility across all the different areas. You don't have to have meetings. You can see the status of what's going on. You can create an actual repeatable, standardized process like we talked about in the commercial operations framework and ingrain it into this system so that every time you need to do this activity, this launch, you've got all the steps laid out, right? You've got the templates for things. You've got estimates on the work so you know how long things should take. And so, you need to move from several systems to one, what I call kind of command center that ultimately helps you run the business for the most important projects, right? New product development and launch. This will also give you data so you can do reporting. We'll get into that in a bit more later on, and really standardizes how the company goes to market, okay? You can show this to people and say, this is exactly what we do. Now, what are some frequently asked questions about moving to a central platform? Okay, I get this every single day. Does this mean that engineering is going to have to stop using Jira? No, absolutely not. Okay, if Jira is a great tool for your software team, your engineering team to manage and track bugs and get tickets to update the website for little tasks like that, no problem. Let them continue to use Jira. That's fine. But what you do need is you need somewhere that if you're going to really rely on them to do a certain piece, right? Like actually develop the project or the product, you need to know roughly at a high level in your main kind of central system, your GrowthOS, what's going on with that. So, maybe, the engineering team has like a block in the GrowthOS that says, develop the prototype, okay? And from the CEO's perspective, from the VP of sales perspective, that's all they need to know. They don't really care about the 97 sub-steps that they need to do to build this prototype, okay? So what you have is engineering using Jira maybe to manage all the minute details in the system that they're comfortable with, but they still need to manage up. They need to manage the big picture project in at least one place, okay? So the idea here is, keep using tools if you're really wed to them. You don't have to change your systems, but at the end of the day, we need at least one place where cross-functional work lives, okay? Next question, how long does it take to implement? We've implemented systems like this in 2 weeks, right? We've had other companies that have taken a little bit longer to get their processes established. Really the implementation time frame isn't a function of the software or the training. It's a function of how quickly can you get ready to use software? How quickly can you get your processes established so that you can ingrain them in software and customize the software so it works for you instead of trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. Another question I get all the time is like, how is a growth operating system different from just any other project management tool, right? Like, Trello, Basecamp, Asana, all these ones, right? The difference with a GrowthOS is that it was designed from the ground up, from the very beginning, to support product management, marketing, and sales enablement, right? It's not enough just to have a platform that you can put tasks in, okay? There's lots of systems that you can put tasks in. A GrowthOS has all your processes, it has all your templates, it has all your tools, it has everything you might need to actually execute those steps, right? Project management tool is a blank shell. It's gonna ask you to fill it up and you gotta configure it, and 9 times out of 10 when people implement a project management tool, they didn't have a lot of experience with implementing it, or they don't know what a good implementation looks like, so they end up with kind of a mess. They have a whole bunch of scattered projects everywhere and they don't get true cross-functional visibility. So, yeah, can you solve it with a project management tool? I've done it before. If you're really careful, you can. But if you can have a tool that solves for that by design and has all the pre-built process templates, the playbooks, the templates, the tools already there, ready to go. And I'm not talking, templates you get from Airtable that some, kid out of school just whipped up to build templates in Airtable. I'm talking about best practice, highly researched, vetted best practice playbooks, tools, and templates that we've been building over the past 15 years. That's really the difference between a GrowthOS and a project management tool. Another question I get is, should my senior leadership team log in here? Do we have to get them to log in? I would say, well, they don't have to. I mean, they can continue to do it the old-fashioned way, which is, don't look at information in real time and have meetings and waste everyone's time, all their direct reports, all their managers, by just asking them simple questions that are actually, there's answers to online. So, they don't have to, but if you really want to change, if you really want to get to market 10 to 20% faster, then yes, I would say your senior management team needs to have visibility into what all the different departments are doing to build and launch the product, okay? So it takes them 2 seconds, they log in, they can see things visually on a board of exactly where each step in the process is at. If anything's blocked, if anything requires their approval or their attention, it's about just training people how to do things. So we're going to talk about how to do change management, how to get people to buy into new systems and processes a little bit later on. But suffice to say, the way you drive the efficiency into getting to market faster is by reducing the meetings. To reduce the meetings, you have to have your processes defined. They have to be living in one central source of truth. And yeah, your senior management team should probably be taking a look at that. This is the fundamental growth engine of their business. If they're not looking at this, they're going to be wasting your time in a meeting asking you what you're doing. Okay, so another question is just cost, right? Are these things like hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement? The good news is absolutely not. These systems are very affordable. Demand Metric built a GrowthOS, and it's available for between $300 and $1,000 a month. So very affordable and something that any company can afford to use. So that's it for how to get to market faster. It's all about reducing meetings, okay? That's the number one issue, and leveraging the processes that you put into some software and moving away from disconnected spreadsheets and a bunch of different tools to manage work in each team and moving that to one centralized platform. Okay, insight number 4. How do you measure productivity and capacity of individuals and teams without asking people to track their time, okay? The way you do this is through implementing an agile operating model to manage and prioritize work. So I learned this in working with one of the largest hospitals and medical universities in the United States. They're called MUSC, Medical University of South Carolina. They got about 17,000 employees, working with the director of marketing there, and she was just underwater. She had a big team. They were using Workfront and trying to figure out their capacity and manage productivity by getting people to track their time. And so the whole basis of their system was tracking hours. And what was happening is that the staff were just annoyed. They were taking too much time to try to report on the work, not enough time doing the work again, right? So, and they felt very disorganized and just reactive in general. So they moved to a remote model with COVID. And obviously being in the healthcare industry and a lot of just, myths about COVID going around, it was essential from a public health perspective that they could execute their marketing very efficiently and effectively to help people, go and get vaccines, right? Understand the reality of what's going on with this pandemic. So when I got called in to do this project, I was really excited to try to, make an impact on the world this way. So in the end, we helped them implement an agile operating model and ultimately be able to measure productivity and capacity without time tracking. And the net result was that the team was much more proactive, the staff were a lot happier, and they were getting messages out into the market very, very efficiently. So let me kind of walk through, why is it a good idea, right? Like we talk about, it sounds smart, like we should know how productive we are. We should know how much capacity we have. But what does it really do for you, right? The first thing that I've learned is that it helps you justify hiring people. If you can't show that your team just simply does not have the bandwidth to get all the work done that's expected of them, they'll fail. They'll miss deadlines, right? They'll be accused of not working hard, but really they're probably working 50 hours a week. You just have no way to quantify that, okay? So the ability to justify hires is critical. The idea with measuring capacity is that if for example, you got a whole bunch of product launches coming down the pipe, maybe don't hit bottlenecks and capacity constraints, while you're operating. You need to know about these constraints ahead of time so you can have enough time to actually recruit and hire and train people so that when you are super busy, that you're ready, you've got the team in place to do it, okay? So the goal here is don't get flabbergasted with so many things going on and not enough team to support it. Get proactive and get in front of that, okay? You wanna make sure your teams and your individuals are just simply not overloaded, right? When people are overloaded, they burn out, they rush their work, it's not good for anything. In some cases, you might feel that there are the odd person in the organization working from home that, maybe they're sitting by the pool and they're not actually getting the work done. I mean, I'm sure that that's not the case, but if you have that suspicion for anyone, tracking and measuring their productivity in an easy way just eliminates that altogether. You've got transparency, everybody knows what everyone else's productivity is, and just by putting a number on the board, right, you'll find that people are gonna get better and better and more productive. They're gonna wanna ramp up team productivity. So, monitoring effectiveness. Here's a really good one, is giving you the ability to say no. When you've got incoming requests from people that don't really report to you, and they're asking you to do something, right? Maybe they got this idea and maybe it's a pretty good idea, but you're already like stacked up with really strategic, important work that you're doing. If you can't quantify and show, here's our bandwidth, here's what we were able to produce, here's what we have in our backlog of things we must get done, I gotta fit you into my bandwidth here somewhere and make some tough decisions on what my team can actually spend their time focusing on. It just gives you that basis to be able to go back and say, look, your little idea, it's not actually a 5-minute thing for us. It's really, since we have a process for that, we know that's 22 hours of work. And so I can't commit to doing that for you right now. We'll leave it in the backlog and we'll take another look later on. And we'll balance that idea and the value and the strategic outcome it's meant to deliver against everything else being asked of us, okay? And the last piece is, and this is the most important by far, okay? I get called every day, I feel like, with this question: how do I show the value that my marketing team is delivering the organization? We don't do campaigns. We're not trying to, directly sell it through e-commerce. Maybe you sell through a channel organization, and most of the work you're doing doesn't have a direct connection and ROI. Well, are you just a cost center then? Are you just, on the side of the equation where when budgets are being cut and times are tough, you're the first place to go? I mean, that's not good for your job security. You don't want to be let go just because, the CFO and the rest of the management team think marketing is a nice to have. You have to demonstrate that the work you're doing is directly tied to strategic business objectives and that you run a tight ship. You know the productivity, you know the capacity of your organization. Without being able to provide metrics and report on these things, I mean, I'm a CEO as well, and there's no way if someone couldn't articulate to me how much their team is doing, would I have confidence in giving them more money to invest in that function, okay? So this is also critical for just giving yourself more credibility to your CEO. Another really quick story, we started working with this company in manufacturing, about 500 employees, in the Midwest, and they had the same problem. New product marketing manager or director was hired. His boss actually was just let go. Kind of a typical marketer, branding, creative type of guy, not very focused on the numbers, didn't have an engineering type background by any stretch. And so when my client got moved into the role, the first thing he said to me was, I need to be able to demonstrate the value that my team provides, number one. So I said, okay, well, how can we do that, right? How can we make this easy for you? So we went through this framework I'm about to share with you, and the net result was within 60 days, his CEO came into his office and said, hey, why are you guys working on these things? This is the wrong stuff. And he said, well, we just didn't know. We didn't know how much time we were spending on different business units we're supporting or different strategic objectives. But at least now we do. Now we know where our time is going, our cost is going. And so because the CEO recognized that my client could articulate where the time had been spent and now going forward could optimize, the resource allocation and make sure people were working on the right things, he said, you know what, Rob, it doesn't matter that you're working on the wrong stuff. I'm gonna invest more into marketing simply because you can show me what you've been doing, how much time you've spent proportionally on various aspects of our business, and which objectives you're trying to achieve. So he got more money immediately, 60 days into it. So I know this stuff works, and I'll show you how you can apply it. So the old way, right? The old way was write stuff down and then get your staff to do like in 15-minute increments, little journal entries of all the time they spend on, I checked my email, I went for lunch, I thought a little bit about this brochure I gotta make. It's highly annoying, and it takes so much time to try to even remember to do this in the first place. And what you find is that people just start playing the system, right? They fudge the numbers, they round up. It's just not accurate, right? It's not a reliable system to actually get real reporting. And unless you're billing by the hour, right? Unless you're an agency or a consulting firm or a lawyer, it really doesn't make sense. Unless you're going to invoice it and show where that time went, you don't need to do it that way, okay? It's very hard to stick to, and it actually makes staff less productive because they're just irritated in general, and they got to spend all this time doing these entries, okay? So the new way is, instead of tracking the time after the fact, okay, when we're doing our process work, when we're like writing down the steps across all of our commercial operations of everything we need to do to design, develop, launch, and market new products, we put in what I call a time budget, okay? This is a budget, it's an estimate. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? It just needs to be consistent. So if you visualize it this way, say we're talking about designing a white paper or something, right? You've got to put the outline together, you've got to write the first draft, you've got to get some feedback and a review, you maybe need to get an approval at that stage, you write a second draft, get it approved, then you need to move it into design, then you need to get a final approval on creative and copy and all this stuff. So you've kind of got this step-by-step process, and if you say, to your copywriter, your designer, or whoever, you don't have all week to write this white paper. We simply can't afford to spend that much money on this content asset. So what we're going to allocate, let's talk about it. How long do you need to write a first draft? Is it a half-day job? Is it a full-day job? And you come up with sort of a rough idea, right? So maybe write the first draft is 4 hours, and do the design first round is 2 hours. Now, because it's been templated and you have all the estimates in place, you only ever have to do that once. You might find that, in doing it a few more times, that you were just off on your estimate. And of course, you can update and improve your estimates. But at the end of the day, if we have a measuring stick, right, a common way to track all of the activities that are happening across the entire organization, that will actually start giving you reports, right? So you'll be able to say, how much time do we spend on design? How much do we spend on writing? How much do we spend doing a job, a bunch of tasks for a particular business unit that we're servicing? How many of the mini projects that we did were really aligned with growing revenue or being more sustainable, or whatever your strategic objectives are? You can start, actually quantifying the productivity of people, of teams, and you can start measuring over the course of, say, the week, how many hours, how many points, did we actually knock out as a team? And if you were doing, say, 1,000 hours of work or 1,000 hours of productive, task work 1 week, you'll find that you'll probably bump that up, right? You'll have a benchmark, and you'll know if you're getting better or worse, if the organization's kind of drifting. So the new way is do estimation, put it into your process templates from the beginning, and don't ask your staff to worry about it. Let them focus on executing the work, keeping things up to date, and moving forward, okay? You'll know their bandwidth, you'll be able to report on things much more effectively, you'll be able to build a business case when you need new hires, because it'll be very clear there's just more work to do than people to do the work, and ultimately avoid missing deadlines, because once you've got your estimates in place, you can actually move to a really cool new practice that we're sharing with a lot of companies called time boxing, where you actually ask your staff, based on prioritizing their list of work to do, okay, and having the estimates of how long things should roughly take, where in your calendar should you plan your week around your priorities and knowing roughly the amount of time to spend on things. So these are some things you can learn a bit more about later on, but for right now, suffice to say, no more time tracking. Let's move into estimation of effort and move that into little project and process level templates, okay? So some questions, right? I get a lot of questions about estimation. Do they have to be 100% accurate? No, absolutely not. This is a proxy for productivity. As long as you're using the same estimates, doing the same repetitive stuff over and over again, you can dial them in a little bit better once you recognize, oh, that wasn't really 8 hours, that was more like 3. Maybe update them once or twice, but generally speaking, once it's been done, you don't have to continue updating them, and it doesn't have to be 100% accurate. It just needs to give you proportionately where you're spending your time, okay? It's not about, is this about micromanaging, right? I get this question a lot, are my staff gonna feel like they're being micromanaged? I would say no. I would say this is a way for your staff to actually push back against management and say, you're giving me 75 hours of work each week. I have a family. I can't work all day Saturday and Sunday to get all these tasks done. So if anything, this will liberate your staff. This will give them the ability to demonstrate how much work they're doing, how much value they're actually providing your organization, and really, know if what they're being asked to do is just unreasonable, right? From a time perspective. This happens a lot with designers. I would say if there's one bottleneck in most marketing organizations, it's giving way too much work to designers and expect them to work 80 hours a week. Another quick question, how do we position this for our staff so they don't fear it? I think the key here is telling them this isn't about micromanagement. In fact, most companies we've implemented this with, they said, we don't even care. We're not even going to look at individual reports. We really just want to know on the aggregate level, right? On the main marketing department level, what did we get accomplished? How did it tie to different strategic business objectives to make sure that as a team, we're ultimately moving forward, being more productive and efficient, getting more work knocked out. So when you position it that way, usually staff get on board. So that's my insight here is, increase your ability to measure productivity and capacity, right? Without asking people to track their time, by doing it the first time around, do an estimate, do a time budget, build it into your process templates so it's one and done, and then you start gathering your data and demonstrating, how much capacity and bandwidth you have. Okay, insight number 5, how to get staff and managers and leaders to buy into any organizational change and adopt new processes or new tools using a proven framework for change management. My goal here is to show you how change doesn't need to be scary. Change doesn't need to invoke a lot of anxiety and stress and fear in your staff if it's managed effectively. So I'm going to give you a good framework for this, okay? First of all, let's just kind of define change management, right? This is kind of one of these consulting terms that if you're not in the business, maybe you've heard it, but you don't quite understand exactly what it means. So we wrote a how-to guide on this a while back, and basically, I think I defined it in there as change management is primarily concerned with how people understand, engage, respond, and communicate with people. It's all about people. A solid vision, senior management sponsorship, and having the right people in the right roles are the key success factors for implementing a successful change management campaign. So we're going to go into a bit more detail here. There's 4 basic types of organizational change. You've got process changes, right? These are focused on how workflows are managed. You're trying to streamline your operations to create efficiencies, cost, improve quality. You've got structural change, right? So this could be changing your reporting relationships, could be a merger or an acquisition, or just centralization or decentralization of say, a marketing organization. Normally these changes are very much top-down driven. Often there's consulting firms involved, and they're really designed to improve the financial performance of the company. These structural changes are often what people get really freaked out about because when you get a private equity company that buys your company and they're selling off divisions and restructuring and maybe trying to fold in the marketing organization with another organization, you might lose your job. And so a lot of people are very weary of change, especially when there's consultants involved, because they're worried it might mean that they're going to eliminate their job, okay? The third type is cost containment, right? So these are really initiatives focused on eliminating costs that are not essential for operations. So you might say, you know what, we used to sponsor this golf tournament every year, and it was a really good time. We really enjoyed it, but with COVID and just costs right now, we can't do that. So we're going to change some of the things that we're investing in, and we're going to maybe shut things down, right? And the last one, and this is probably the most important one, is cultural. Okay, so this is focused on changing attitudes and beliefs, right? The habits of people, right? So when organizations are trying to go from product-centric to market or customer-centric, this would be the type of change we're talking about. It's really a cultural change. In order to successfully navigate that, you've got to have a lot of people rowing in the right direction, okay? So why is change so hard, right? I think it's, I can't remember the study, but generally speaking, what they say is 20% of people in your organization will immediately get on board with the change. Okay, these are usually your star employees, right? The people that are kind of innovative, they're open-minded, generally your best staff, okay? About 50% will sit on the fence. They're gonna kind of wait and see, what everybody else does before they make an opinion heard either way. And then unfortunately, a pretty big percentage, about 30%, are generally gonna resist any kind of change, right? And I think the real root cause of resistance is that people fear the unknown, right? And so when you talk about change, whether it's good change or bad change, it's it's kind of unknown what the outcome is going to be. So it's really critical that the team that's involved in leading the change is very, very confident in the outcomes that the change is meant to achieve, okay? If you're unsure, you're not really 100% convinced that it's going to work, that will really come through and your staff will pick up on it. So it's critical that you're confident in the outcomes so that they really view these changes as being positive. We're going to get to a new place. It's going to be better in the promised land, okay? So your goal, it's kind of like politics, right? You got to get the 20% that are on board to influence the 50% that are on the fence faster than the 30% drag them down, right? Because ultimately, once you get to 50, 60% majority of people doing the new work and adopting the new process, if you're in the minority in the company that's actually not doing the change, you kind of look bad, right? So if you can get 50, 60% of people on board on the way, the rest of the people will follow. And in fairness, some people just never ever agree to do the change. They don't want to learn new and better ways of doing things, and unfortunately, that's usually pretty career limiting for them. So the goal here: get your 20% to influence your 50%. Okay. Why do most transformations or change type projects fail? I've read a stat, again from McKinsey, that said just about 70% of transformations fail. They go over time, they go over budget, they don't achieve the outcomes. I mean, this is crazy. There's companies paying millions and millions of dollars to these consulting firms to help them with these transformations, and they're failing almost more often than not. This is absolutely crazy to me. So Brent Gleason wrote an article on Forbes I found the other day for this presentation. I thought he had a great quote. So basically what he said was that a weak culture that isn't aligned with the mission, okay, or the strategy, or lack of participation and buy-in, or under-communicating a powerful vision. So you got a really great idea for how to make the company better, but you don't communicate it effectively, or over-communicating a bad vision, right? Like talking a lot about an idea that no one thinks is a good idea. These are some of the major factors in what causes these transformations to fail. And another big one is not enough training and resources, okay? I'd like to add one more to this list. I believe that, in trying to get people to change their behaviors, their habits, their beliefs, you need someone who's got experience in helping people change, right? So coaches, right? Personal trainers. These are people that help people literally transform their lives, improve their ability to perform, out on the field. These are the real change agents of our world, right? These are the people that make change happen. They help people understand what they're doing. Maybe it's, hitting a ball, and if their elbow's not quite high enough, they don't hit the ball the best way. So unless that baseball player realizes that those mechanics are important, they may not change their behavior, and they won't be the best batter out there. So I think getting the right advice and having someone with experience with this is absolutely critical. The old way, okay? So how do companies manage change in the past? Certainly if it was structural, it was likely that they would hire a consulting firm. If it was cultural, most people just don't believe cultural change can happen, I think. Cost containment, certainly there's firms that are dedicated and focused on streamlining costs. A lot of private equity companies will come in with their consultants, right, to look for those opportunities to cut jobs, cut costs. But the old way was sort of let a consultant, let a professional handle this, okay? Few issues with this from my perspective, right? The first is consulting is very expensive, right? It can be millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do large-scale change initiatives. It can take years, right? Consultants get paid by the hour. They have no incentive to get this done quickly for you. In fact, the longer it takes, the more time they spend, the more money they make. Trust. Staff, generally speaking, do not, like consultants. They're like, who is this person here telling me how to do my job that doesn't even work here, right? And are they looking to cut my job out, right? So they often don't trust them. Consulting's not really designed to transfer a lot of knowledge and skills to staff, and certainly not designed to give the templates they use, right, their best practices to the companies they work with. So when the consultant leaves, often the changes that they're trying to put in place kind of go away, because the person that was really influential and sort of pushing for the change, they're not talking to your boss anymore, they're not talking to the CEO. It's sort of a little blip, and there was some change initially, and then people go back to their old ways, okay? So you don't have this toolkit left with you. People kind of revert back. They're afraid of consultants in the first place. It's expensive, takes a long time, and generally proven to fail most of the time. And I think there's a little bit of a conflict of interest, right? If I'm a consultant and my job is to go in there and, change your operating model and go from waterfall to agile, for example. I go in, I get my contract, I do my training, I analyze the process, I roll it out, and then you're on your own to figure out if it actually worked, okay? They get paid either way, whether it worked or not. With a coach, on the other hand, if you have someone, especially if it's a coach that also is implementing software for you, they have a long-term, desire to see you successful, right? You're aligned on success. They get paid for a long time with the coaching, with the software and the resources, if you stay using it, right? If you continue and actually get success from the platform. So in a perfect world, you can find coaches with software, not consultants and not software on its own. So that's my perspective here. You want to align your interests with whoever is going to be leading this change for you. The new way. So, instead of doing it through a consultant, I recommend using a coach. It doesn't have to be me, it doesn't have to be D.M.A.I.C, but get a coach who's done this before, right? If I was going to, learn how to become a world-class bass fisherman, I wouldn't just go to, Bass Pro and buy some gear and get a boat and just go out and try to figure it out. I would try to find the best bass fisherman I could find to show me the ropes, right? Give me the shortcuts, show me exactly what I'm doing wrong, right? Coach me, right? Help me improve my performance. So the new way is use a coach. The coaches are usually much more cost effective. Changes can happen much more rapidly because you're not trying to ramp up this consultant on your business and figure out what's going on. The people in the company are the ones that do the work, right? So the coach just guides them. They show them what to do, but the people are doing the work. So they get engaged. They don't fear the coach because the coach is actually trying to help them become more successful personally in their job, maybe increase their skill set. The whole goal is to transfer the knowledge from the coach to the staff. So you have this long-term capability that's building, right? They're going to give you tools and resources. It's not about, this is my proprietary toolkit, pay me $500 an hour and I'll come in and use it and dazzle you and then I'm gone. It's more, here's a great toolkit, try this on your own, ask me questions, let me take a look at your work, right? Help them validate that what the staff are doing is actually working well. And ultimately, you align your interests. Coaches, really, all the coaches I know, they get a lot of warmth and gratitude and just when companies are succeeding, individuals are succeeding, there's a lot of intrinsic value as a coach to see the people you're coaching really succeed. So you want to make sure that someone's not in there, to make money and just do a quick job and doesn't really care about you long term. You want to build a relationship with someone who's very much vested in your success and is going to enjoy seeing you be successful. Okay, so coaching versus consulting. What's really the difference between these two things? It became clear to me this week. I had a client that we'd worked with for years. She had one of the top 4 consulting firms come in and put a center of excellence in place in her marketing organization. And I thought, okay, well, they can afford the big consulting firms, great. Why are you calling? What do you need? And so she said, we're doing a good job. We got the center of excellence, the new structure in place, team's operating well, but we're drowning in meetings. Morale is heading in the wrong direction. And I thought, well, the consultants might have did a great job, very thorough, setting everything up, but they didn't solve all the problems, right? They didn't figure out how to reduce the meetings. They didn't figure out how to make sure that the staff and they're involved in the process doing the work were actually happy and that things, the way they were operating was working really well. It wasn't practical enough. So I said, I think I can give you a hand. We're starting a project. And, basically what I discovered is that coaches focus on improving how individuals and teams perform, right? The Chicago Bulls would not have won all the championships without Phil Jackson, right? Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were not enough to win. You had to have great coaches getting the best performance out of each player, okay? Consultants, their job isn't to get the best performance out of your people. It's to be smarter than your people, to do it for them, to show them the way or just get it done. So you're kind of hiring a gun. You're hiring an expert who's very, very smart and gets paid a lot of money, but you're not investing in getting your people smarter. And so that's the difference here. Coaching is much more about improving the overall capability of the teams, the people, versus just coming in and doing it for you, okay? A little framework I've built here, trying to make this again easy to remember on how to manage change, okay? So the first thing, C, commit. You have to absolutely commit that this is happening. So this is really sponsorship from your senior executive team. It can't be, we're thinking about it. You need to make a commitment. If I want to lose 20 pounds, I got to commit. I'm losing 20 pounds in the next 3 months, right? Commit's number one. The second one, H, okay? Have a reason. You need to clearly communicate the why, okay? Why are we doing this? And the reason this is so important is that, I was telling you earlier, if you're not communicating a good vision, right? If you're under communicating a good vision, then people won't really understand. They're like, why are we doing this? Why can't we just do things that we always did before, right? Or if you have a bad vision, they might be like, this is just a bad idea altogether. In any case, be clear on your vision. Be clear on the outcomes that this change is meant to achieve. I'm gonna work with this personal trainer. I'm gonna lose 20 pounds. I'm gonna feel great. I'm gonna look great. You know, very clear. Those are my reasons, okay? A, okay? Ask for input. You need to get everybody in the organization that's gonna be involved in this change involved, right? You need to ask them, you know, what do you think? You know, how are we doing things now? What do you think we could do to improve it? They need to be part of the solution. If they just feel like, you know, some consultant came in, they figured this out and here's the new way, they're probably gonna resist it. But if you instead, you know, say, look, we're committing to this change, we have a problem, we have to solve it, okay? Here's the vision, this is what good looks like. This is when we come out the other side of this change, what we're gonna look like as a team, as an organization. Now help me get us there. What do you think we need to do? Ask everybody, get them involved, okay? Ask. N, okay? This one I think is where people have the most trouble. And it's N for not optional. When you commit to a change, maybe it's a new CRM system, okay? This is a good example. A lot of companies implemented for other CRM in the past 10 years. And you know, they had an entrepreneurial culture, you know, some of their best sales guys were, you know, also the guys that didn't want to use Salesforce. They didn't want to log their opportunities, they didn't want to put their notes in there. And you know, so companies would spend millions of dollars on the software, buying consulting, doing training, all this stuff, because they wanted to solve a problem. They wanted to have a clear view of their sales and their forecast. Okay, but if the sales guys, especially the good ones that are closing all the deals, don't come on board and put their opportunities in there, the CEO can never get a clear picture of what's going on. So what are you doing? You're back in meetings, you're talking to the VP of sales, you're having sales pipeline meetings, you're wasting all your salespeople's time because they simply just didn't follow a process and take 2 seconds to put an opportunity into the system, okay? So it needs to be not optional. I heard one CEO told me how he got this to work. He said, I just told them, if their opportunity isn't in Salesforce, well before the close date, okay, like in the stage of discovery and proposal and all of this, they didn't get paid commission. And that was it. That was enough to tell them this was serious. The CEO needs this information in real time. It's either put it in there or don't get paid. So you have to be a little bit, you know, very sensitive at the beginning in change with it, you know, what we're doing and how we're doing it, why we're doing it, getting people's feedback. But when it comes time to actually make the change happen, you can't let up. You can't make this something that some people do, not other people. It can't be a political thing that if you're a top performer, you know, change doesn't apply to you. You know, it has to be consistent, okay? G, right? Get it done fast. You want to rip this off like a Band-Aid. You don't want change lingering for 3, 6, 9 months, right? Build a plan, get the feedback, figure out what you're going to do, tell people it's not optional, roll out the policy, but do it quick. Make the cutover as fast as humanly possible, okay? Nobody wants to be in kind of no man's land. And the last part, E, ensure. Ensure the change is adopted. The way you do this is, just like we talked about with processes, you need some way to control your process. You need metrics, okay, attached to certain activities that are happening. So back to the example of the CRM system, if you want to track opportunities and you want to make sure people are putting them in there, reports, right? You got to take a look. How many new opportunities were added this week? You need a dashboard that shows, okay, yeah, it looks like now we're seeing these things flow through. So you got to ensure that it's actually sticking, and you want to make sure you're continuing to optimize your process over time. But ultimately, this is my my change management framework. I hope you like it. Couple bottom line things here, right? So if you really want to make change happen, you need, I think, 4 things, right? Complete and total buy-in from the senior management team and consensus. It can't be some leaders are saying yes, some leaders are saying no. You need consensus from the top. You need to educate and engage your managers and staff. It's all about education and engagement. You need to align their personal goals, okay? So if I'm a marketing manager, you know, and I want to become a marketing director, right? You want to talk in terms of the change in ways that you can help your staff achieve their objective, right? By doing this, by increasing your skills, if the team adopts Agile, whatever, you'll be more marketable. You'll be a person that other companies will want to hire because you have more skills now. So helping them understand how getting smarter, getting better, more effective actually helps them earn more income. They're gonna be more valuable in the world, right? So think about the personal upside for your staff and communicate it in those terms. Don't just talk about what's good for the business, okay? And the last piece is you need some experience with this. I think that a lot of organizations fail to change, even working with experienced consultants, right? So it's not easy to do this well, but it can be done, and try to find someone who's at least gone through this change before, has come out the other side and affected the change. It's actually stuck, and they got the results and the outcomes they wanted. We've got a few change management tools. We built readiness assessments for change management plans. We got strategy scorecards to kind of measure your change initiative and figure out how you're going to see if the changes are sticking. So these are all resources that you can get on Demand Metric. Got a couple of quick questions here that usually come up. How long do change initiatives have to take? Are these like multi-year things, or is it possible to get a 50-person organization changing something in a matter of months or weeks? And I think it sort of depends. I think with, if you have a lot of tools and templates and experience in doing the change, you've done it, 50 times, you can really reduce that cycle. So if you are going to work with anyone who's going to help you with this change, really vet them, right? Find out who they've worked with, how long do these changes take, and what was the result at the end. Those are the most important things I would say. I've got a lot more to share in this masterclass, so I'm going to wrap it up with that, but hopefully this was helpful, helping you understand how to get staff to buy into new processes, new systems happily, right? By positioning the change as something that's going to make their life better, help them with their own personal development, their own objectives in their life, and ultimately get this change to stick. Okay, so just to kind of wrap things up, I shared 5 unique insights that I've learned working with some of the world's best companies. Just to kind of put these into order for you, I call this 5 steps to achieving commercial excellence, or to really optimizing your marketing function, transforming it from sort of a cost center that isn't creating value for the business into a strategic driver of revenue strategy, right? Revenue growth for the organization. So, okay, 5 steps. First one, create a commercial operations framework and integrate it with your product development process, okay? So this was that, all the steps we do from inception, from idea to market, okay? We need to look at that through the lens of sales and marketing and optimize just as much as we've done that on the actual development of the product side of things, okay? Number 2, define and optimize your processes using the D.M.A.I.C Lean Six Sigma approach, okay? Look at that capability, maturity levels, right? Are we level 2, level 1? Get to level 4 as quickly as possible on all commercial operations, and use that D.M.A.I.C framework to help you kind of sort through that. If you need help to get this done really quickly, remember, Demand Metric has been doing this for 15 years. We've built out all kinds of playbooks and process templates for best practices in marketing, product management, and sales enablement. Number 3, implement a growth operating system, okay? This will help you gain cross-functional visibility. It'll eliminate the need for 75% of your meetings, because you'll have an idea of the status of things in real time. You want to communicate at the speed of light, not like 20 years ago doing 15 status and steering committee and one-on-ones. People are just drowning in meetings these days, and no wonder everything gets delayed, okay? So move to a central source of truth on cross-functional projects. Let people still continue to use their tools for the minutia that they need to deal with in their department, but for anything strategic, a product launch, right? New product development, you need to have visibility across all these functional areas, even if it's just at a high level, to have a command center and drive efficiency through that process, okay? Adopt an agile operating model, okay? This will, by definition, right? Most people, they say agile, they don't really know what it means, okay? Agile is not about some newfangled strategy or some cool idea. It's about documenting and defining and standardizing your work, right? What are your core repetitive processes you need to run? Estimating those, right? How long should it take to do these things? What are your time budgets for things? And then moving that into a system so you can see a backlog, you can prioritize that backlog, you can set in front of you a set of priority tasks that must get done over the next couple of weeks to focus your team, okay? Better prioritize. This will also give you the additional benefits, right? Being able to measure productivity, be able to measure capacity, be able to justify new hires, okay? So you think agile, you don't think, oh, how's that gonna help me hire people easier? Well, it does, okay? So when you really understand what the outcomes of agile are, you'll see it's gonna help you measure productivity and performance, okay? Number 5, roll out changes to your frameworks, your processes, your new tools and systems to staff very, very carefully with a constructed change management plan. Consider working with a coach over a consultant and rip it off like a Band-Aid. Get it done quickly, follow the change management framework I gave you, and you'll be on your way. So those are my 5 key steps to how you can optimize or achieve true commercial excellence and get your modern marketing into motion. Okay, so this concludes the masterclass. I hope this was useful information. These are things I've learned over 15 years and working with a lot of companies. Certainly didn't come easily. There was a lot of ups and downs in figuring things out, but fortunately I was able to work with some of the smartest people, people that have gone to Stanford, Wharton, the best business schools in the world, to figure these things out. So hopefully you can use them in your business. Demand Metric does have what we call a commercial excellence program. We do have a growth operating system, and we do have all kinds of research, online courses, tools, templates, all kinds of things to help you on your journey to achieving commercial excellence. But in terms of the commercial excellence program, basically, what it's designed to do is about 5 things, okay? Number 1, give you the full visibility and transparency you need across your commercial operations, okay? Help you get to market faster, 10 to 20% faster on your new product launches. If we can shave a month or 2 off your product development and launch cycle, that typically results in hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of additional revenues and increased profitability, okay? Number 3, bump up your revenue and earnings, okay? We saw the McKinsey study, 2% faster revenue growth, 5% better earnings for companies who have mastered commercial execution. I'm not making this stuff up. This is what the best companies in the world are doing. They're focusing on driving as much excellence into marketing, sales, and product management as they've already developed in their manufacturing or their engineering organizations, okay? Another key benefit and goal of this program is to help you effectively prioritize your team and your company's work, right? Make sure that when people come into the office on Monday morning, they're very aligned with tasks and activities that are going to drive the strategic objectives you've built into your plan, okay? So alignment with your strategic plan and making sure you're prioritizing work effectively. Talked about problems at the beginning of this masterclass that companies are plagued with. This whole entire program was designed to solve systematically each of those 10 problems, okay? In the end, we want to help you measure the capacity of your staff, make sure you're not overloading your people. You'll have an easier time retaining your staff and recruiting new people to come and work at your business because you're operating with modern, proven, best practice models to operate, Agile, it's not just a trend, right? McKinsey said Agile, sounded good before, now it's imperative. I believe that to be true. If you don't have a systematic way to prioritize and manage work, then you really need to look into that. It's probably one of the reasons why you're not getting to market as quickly as you can, okay? We've kind of built out a set of steps, so like a transformation plan that we work our clients through when they join our program. Basically the first step is recognize your issues and understand the root causes. I've tried to share those with you as much as I possibly could today from what I've learned and talking to literally thousands of executives out there trying to do this. So you got to recognize your issues, right? You've got to understand the root causes. You have to know that some attitudes, some beliefs, some behaviors, some habits, they're going to need to change if you want to solve the problem. My grandmother told me when I was a little boy, Jesse, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And so if you want better outcomes, something about what you're doing needs to change. Second step, you need to put a project team together. This isn't one person's job to solve these enterprise organizational issues. This is usually a team of CEOs, VPs of sales, VPs of marketing, head of product development, right? This is a core team, a leadership team that needs to come together to effectively get a change in place and ultimately optimize your operations. Number 3, right? Part of the change management framework, you need to commit to transformation and you're going to need a budget. This is an investment in growth, okay? Better marketing, done well should equal more revenue. But if it's, you don't have any money to invest in marketing or improving how you go to market or what you're building or how you launch it, you're probably going to get the same kind of results you've always had in the past. So to get up to the next level, if you're a $500 million company, you want to get to $1 billion, you're going to need to make investments in order to have the structure in place, the capacity, the capabilities in order to get to that next level, okay? Number 4, hire an expert coach. It doesn't have to be me. Just find someone who knows what they're doing, who's done this before several times, and they've gotten real results for their customers, okay? Develop your commercial framework. Most organizations, if they're in software, they might have this. But in manufacturing and healthcare and a lot of other organizations, they just don't have the same level of process, definition and have this all kind of written down. So you've got to develop a framework that everyone can sort of understand the big picture of how do we develop products, get them to market and sell them. You need to implement a growth operating system, okay? So something that's going to give you that cross-functional visibility into all the major aspects, right? From product management to engineering to product marketing to sales operations to marketing operations. All these pieces are interconnected on getting products to market. So you need a central source of truth. It is possible to configure a really good project management system to do this, but it generally speaking requires a lot of reconfiguration, 2 to 3 months of work in order to get it to kind of function like a GrowthOS. We find that we can get our clients there in a matter of weeks because we've got all the templates, we've got all the processes already built out inside the system. Number 7, train your managers and your staff, okay? So this is the new processes, the new tools, giving them, new operating methods like Agile. You might have to go a little bit deeper with your managers than just, your regular staff, so they can become experts and lead the team through change. And then number 8, you want to review and optimize over time, right? Commercial excellence is not a destination. This is a journey. It's a long journey. The goal is to commit to the long run. It's a marathon, not a sprint, okay? How our program works kind of fundamentally, there's 3 components to it. We have an advisory, and this is where you'd work with me directly or someone on my team, and we're going to help you with doing things like reviewing your processes, building frameworks, configuring software, implementing systems, managing change, right? Training staff. There's a lot of work that needs to happen in order to figure out how all these pieces come together. So, determine your goals, figure out what the outcome is, what are the quick wins you're going for, and then mapping the shortest possible course to getting there, okay? So the advisor is really working with a coach, okay? The second piece to it is a platform. So that's the growth operating system. In that area, we develop standard operating procedures for how people use it. What are the assumptions, what are the rules, right? How do we govern the use of this platform? Project management without good governance becomes a nightmare, and it's just a system full of data that wastes everyone's time going in to try to get information from it, okay? It's very important that you implement a platform correctly so that you actually achieve these outcomes. The third piece is training. You're going to have to train people on systems. You're going to have to train them on new processes. You're going to have to train them on using templates. You need to level up the capabilities. You need to get people punching above their weight class in all parts of your organization if you want to grow faster. You need to get your people smarter. Don't hire consultants. Don't have them come in and do it for you. Get better people in place, or get the people you have in place operating at a higher level, okay? So in terms of the advisory component, we generally walk organizations through, an assessment. So we do an operational assessment to understand, kind of the strengths and weaknesses, some immediate areas for improvement. We go through the process optimization with the D.M.A.I.C model. We help you use Lean Six Sigma to really build your framework and ultimately get your processes defined. And then we're going to work with you to configure those processes, those estimates for how long it should take, things to get done into the software. So now this is a completely customized growth operating system that you can rely on that has all of your best practice process, your frameworks operationalized, okay? In terms of implementing the system itself, we can share with you what this looks like, but basically you're going to have the ability to visualize your workflows, okay, for all your core commercial processes on a Kanban board. So you can see, is this not started? Is it in progress? Is it in review? Is it done? So at a glance, you can see not only a single project, but you can actually view across all the different projects. So in my role as a CEO, I can't look at all the details. I just simply can't do it. I need my team to focus on those things. What I do need to know are what are the critical path milestones on all these projects we have going on. When do we know if we're moving the needle, getting closer to our goal? So we built this platform in a way where we can quickly view across multiple projects and surface just the most important information at the CEO level. What do the sales guys need to see? What does development need to see? And configure those interfaces so that people get the information they need in real time. Okay, it's very, very simple to use. We built this from the ground up to be extremely easy. So if you've got people that aren't really good on the computer, they can use this too, all right? There's a lot of pre-built resources and project plans and processes already inside of the system. This is what makes it unique from Asana, from Basecamp, from any other project management system you've seen out there, and it was built from the ground up specifically to solve the problems we're talking about today. The last part, training. So training, you really need to help people understand how to do their job. You know, part of it is defining the processes, right? Working with them to define what does this look like. But the other part of it is putting playbooks in place, right? How do we define a new market opportunity? If we don't have a playbook for what we call like upstream marketing or pre-product development, different product managers are probably going to do all that work a little differently. They're not going to have templates. They're not going to have standards of what good analysis looks like. So we put the playbooks in place, we customize them. We've got 30 different playbooks and toolkits, over 750 tools that you have access to. You can quickly knock off our logo, customize, work with our coaches to really make them a fit for your organization, and then pair that up with what you've already got over there. You've probably got some good templates. You've got some people that do the job really, really well. What we want to do is get everybody operating at that highest baseline. So we collaborate, we take your stuff, our stuff, we put it together, we build your playbooks out, and ultimately we need to then move into training on things like Agile, things like how to use the software, what are the rules of the system, and really be optimizing over time, okay? So those are the three major components. We usually recommend starting off, when we work with new clients, not betting the farm on demand metric, right? We say, try us out for 3 months, try a pilot, okay? Pick one group or one team or one business problem that you want to solve. And what we'll do is we'll go in the first couple of weeks and we'll do some deep assessment, right? We'll figure out what's going on in there. We'll look at your processes. Then we'll move into a design phase. We're going to look at, should we build a framework for this? What are the processes we need to have? How do we estimate the time and all of that? What are the roles and responsibilities? Then we set it up, right? We take those processes, we ingrain them in the platform, we get it all, kind of looking good, customize it as needed, and then we train, right? And so we train the staff on it, we show them the new process, we'd ask them for their input in the earlier part of this, so this shouldn't be a surprise to them, and we get them just operating using this new model, this new process, and this new system. Give that a month or two, right? Get a feel for how it's working. And if everyone thinks that, life is drastically better as a result of engaging with demand metric, we're less stressed out, we're not overloaded, it's very clear who's doing what, we know what the status of everything is, then move it from one process of maybe how we develop content into other commercial operations. Generally speaking, we're looking to get a really solid ROI and make sure that if you're going to invest in commercial excellence and platforms and coaching, that you're gonna have upside financially from this. So our goal is to help you get to market 10 to 20% faster, squeeze out that efficiency, right? Find a way to reduce your meetings. If we can do that, you'll get a 5, 10, 20x ROI on this, because if you save 2 months on development and you get to market sooner, that's all just additional revenue. You're out in front of your competition. You've got that first mover advantage. If you have to spend a little bit of money in order to shorten your cycles, that's a small investment to make to get a long-term capability that's in place that's going to pay itself off over and over and over again, because now you've got the skills, you've got the process, you've got the tools you need to be the most efficient and effective commercial organization possible. Okay, so I've provided you with 5 unique insights. I've given you a bit of an overview of our commercial excellence program and growth operating system. If you're at all interested, if what I've been telling you makes sense and you have these problems, you agree that the root causes are kind of logical, and that the stories I've told you about how we've worked to transform other organizations, if you want to get those types of results quickly and sort of give Demand Metric a try, give us a shot to work with us, I'd encourage you to apply to our program. It's a quick little form you fill out, and we'll get back to you right away. Generally speaking, we work with companies that are sort of mid-size, so 100 million in revenue to a couple billion, maybe up to 5 billion in revenue, looking to get to the next level. They need to put structure in place. They need to solve these operational issues in order to really drive revenue growth. If those are your objectives and you like the presentation, then fill out the application. We've got fairly limited bandwidth. We can only take on about 7, maybe 10 clients max per quarter. But the work we're doing is certainly impacting these organizations we're working with. So if you do want a chance to work with us, apply to the program. And just want to say thanks for watching this masterclass. It was really fun presenting this to you, and hopefully I'll see you on the other side.